Welcome to Horror Talks Live. Our special guest tonight is actor Bill D. Russell. And Bill, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Great to be here, Michael. Nice to meet you. I
Always.
look at some of your books that you've written. I'm very impressive. It's a pleasure to be on your show.
Appreciate it. I really, that's a high compliment indeed. All right, Bill. Now, to start off with, just want to let you know that I am a big fan of Puppet Master. Okay.
Oh,
In fact, I used to have the entire action figure collection right there on my shelf.
oh
Okay.
wow.
This is back when I was a student. And of course, I kept up with the movies that Full Moon Pictures put out practically every year. Okay. So I'm all good. Now, after watching Puppet Master Dr. Death, I must say that was a good addition, an excellent addition to the movie series. I enjoyed it.
Well, I'm glad you thought so. Yeah, it depends. Some people don't get it, but if you like the Puppet Master movies and you like that kind of film, that genre, subgenre, whatever you call it, yeah, I think it's for what it is. It's very well done.
Mhm. I just like how Full Moon does it all. You know what I mean? The
Oh,
pictures are very
absolutely.
low key, they're calm, and they're not too noisy and nerve wracking like as some horror pictures are.
Right, I agree. Yeah.
So that's probably why I like it so much. Now, and I bet the cast was pretty fun to work with, weren't they?
Yeah, I really didn't get to because I'm just, strapped to a gurney screaming. That's most of most of my part. I really didn't interact with many of the other actors. Um, I did a little bit with Jenny Bosworth, who played April, kind of the main character in the film. But otherwise, it was pretty much just me interacting with director Dave Parker and the special effects uh, fellow Dave Leitner or Greg Leitner, who's just amazing.
Mhm. I bet he is. Okay. Now, how did you prepare for this Maximilian Kuda character? Okay, for the scene that required extreme emotion. The heart attack.
Yeah, exactly. Um, I'll preface that by saying uh, I originally auditioned. The original audition notice on Actors Access was for, I believe, the character of the older guy with the long beard. Um, so that was what I did, a self tape. I sent that in. I got notice from the casting director saying Dave Parker would like to do a Zoom with you. But they had me read for a second part, which was the guy who has the golf club, who's putting in his room. So, so then I did that on the Zoom for Dave, and when they contacted me again, they said, "Well, we're going to offer you this part, but it's not the ones you auditioned for." Um, so as far as preparation, other than vocal warm-ups, the emotional part, honestly, that Dave Parker, was sitting off screen and just kept yelling things at me like, now imagine this, now imagine that, now this is happening and it's happening right next to your head. Okay, now you're making a sound. He just kept lobbing things at me. It would be interesting to see the full the full footage of that. Yeah, because it was fun, and I'm like,
Sounds a little
yeah, it's
dictatorial, but it all worked out well. It
yeah.
was
If they had just said, scream like you're having a nightmare and then a heart attack, it would have been much different.
good. Mhm.
I know.
Well,
I watch it and go, wow, Dave did a good job.
Well, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed every single moment of the movie. The dull moments had a way of heightening up the exciting moments. And I
Right.
thought that was an excellent strategy on the director's behalf. But I've seen that technique play out in other horror pictures, especially the bigger ones, starting with The Exorcists, the original
Mm,
Exorcists.
mm,
Okay,
mm.
we'll probably get into that some other time. Okay, now, Bill, what drew you to this specific role, and what did you find most exciting about it?
About Max, are you talking about? Yeah, actually, I liked the fact that I get to open the film.
especially being the beginning of it, and
Right, right.
so
I had this attitude that, even if there are people who don't get into it and don't watch the whole movie, they'll at least wait for me to die. Um, so yeah, it was
we wanted to see
it
him
was
in more
fun.
more scenes, and it was unfortunate, so
Yeah, it would have been nice if they'd done some flashbacks or something, but it is
dreams,
what it is.
flashbacks, memories, definitely.
So
All right, great.
there's a lot of Puppet Master fans out there who, you know, they like the fact that I interact with them, and we'd love to see you in another Full Moon Features film, or we'd like to see you in one of the games. Uh, I am in one of the sketch cards that was done for the 35th anniversary Puppet Master training cards. But that's just like one person gets that. It's a hand drawn sketch card.
Wow, sounds
Yeah,
cool. And I gotta see it. I gotta check it out. Definitely.
yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
I used to, back in the day when I was a teenager, I used to collect these sketch cards, these like horror movie sketch cards.
Okay, yeah.
Apparently they're kind of like breaking them back. But here's another question for you, Bill.
If
What
if
was
I can just real quick, this is
let's
the
see it.
this is the artwork.
I like it. Colorful.
Um, Artist by the name of Caesar Crawford, who publishes. He's got Revel Comics and publishes a magazine called Sketched, which is specifically for comic sketch artists.
Right.
And he had posted something in a Facebook group that he was doing these Puppet Master sketches, and I didn't know that he was doing them for the trading cards. I had no clue. I just thought he was a fan. So I said, "Hey, here's a picture of me and Dr. Death from the movie. If you don't mind, I'd love to see what you could do with that." And that's what he did. And then I find out, oh my gosh, that was for the trading cards. But Caesar said, he authorized me to be able to use it to put it on T-shirts and things. But it's like my card is the only one where the like somebody else besides the main figure is in it. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Max Kuda is in there, and that's the rest of them. It's just the character.
I see.
So
Well,
that's
him being an artist, and when you presented that idea to him, I bet a lot of concepts, thousands of them had streamed through his mind, and
oh yeah,
he just chose that particular one. But yeah, I like the design. Good artwork. I like it. All right. Now, I looked at your filmography. It's kind of extensive, and I'm going to go ahead and go through this list of movies that you have
sure.
appeared in. Okay, and starting with The Last Dragon, The Haunted World of El Super Besto, The Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires. Sounds
I- I'll
interesting.
st- I'll stop you right there.
Sure, go right ahead.
That's not my filmography.
Oh, I'm so sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
The internet.
I was like, damn, I wish I was in those.
Yeah, so sorry about that.
No, that's all
But
right.
you were in The Devil's Rejects. I saw your. Were you in that? Yeah,
No,
you
no,
were.
no,
Yeah. Sorry about that.
no,
Yeah.
that's okay.
Wow. Mhm. Okay, so we're going to go on to other business here. Okay, and
Sure.
the internet is very sketchy place, to do research on.
Yeah. Well,
And
and the reason that I like make I try to stress to people, please remember my middle initial, the
Mhm.
D,
Yeah,
because there are other Bill Russell actors.
yeah. Well, this
So
one,
it's
this particular.
very possible. It would have been very easy for you to have gotten somebody else's filmography.
Right, but your picture was on that IMDb, and below it
Interesting.
was those names of those pictures. Just to
Yeah,
point
that's
out.
why.
Yeah, yeah. So
God only
someone made an
knows
error
why.
there. Yeah. If
Yeah,
it,
sometimes I don't understand the images that come up with the IMDb stuff. Like if you Google
yeah.
something, like sometimes I'll be trying to find something that I was in, and the images that come up have nothing to do with the film or anything or me.
Mhm.
So who knows?
It's a
Who
good
knows?
thing, I did address this to you, so you could correct it right here, right now. For those that should happen to go into that site and see that, typo, then they'll understand. Okay,
Yeah.
but anyhow. We have The Field of Screams, which was your
Field of
latest film
Screams. Yeah.
that came out in 2024. And
Yeah.
correct? All right.
No, actually, that came out earlier this year. That came out in
Oh,
May.
really? So it's brand newer than that. Oh, that's so
Yeah,
cool.
we shot it last year and it was released.
Oh, and
We
this year.
started
Excellent.
streaming the middle of May, I believe.
Wow. Okay, so it's still brand new. And I
Yeah.
didn't have a chance to watch the movie in its entirety, unfortunately, because I'm busy doing 1,000 things. However, I saw the trailer, and it looks as though that it focuses on this killer scarecrow person. So if you could key us in on the story, that'd be great.
Well, the character I play is, and again, I die at the beginning of the movie. I try to make that's my type now. I found out just an aside. I found out recently that there's a site on called part of the fandom uh, website. It's called Cinemorgue, and it's a listing of all the movies that there are deaths in the actor who died. So I have this listing of myself for Puppet Master Doctor Death and Field of Screams and Evil Lurks. There's like 5 films on this list that I've died in. So,
Right.
yeah,
Wow. Why did the directors have you die? I don't know. That I will never understand that. Okay.
right.
But
So in Field of Screams, I played uh, like a retired Appalachian Ozark farmer who's dabbles in folk type magic, specifically what they call a water witch. I had divining rods and things like that.
wow, that does
So
sound
I have evidently through some magic spell brought to life a scarecrow that is basically my surrogate son. It's just me living in this big old farmhouse with my scarecrow son. Uh, and we're playing hide and go seek one night, and when he jumps out at me, it it truly startles me, and I have a heart attack and die. So it's not that he means to kill me, but he inadvertently does. And then when my grandkids, I think, come to take over the property, Billy the Scarecrow, yeah, uh, defends the property against the interlopers.
well, the scarecrow, the
There's
cornfield
one of my favorite scenes is he takes an urn,
Mhm.
which I guess was my ashes, and pours them into himself. I'm like, holy, that's cool.
Wow. Okay. So once again, for the viewers are watching, it's called The Field of Screams.
Field of Screams. And just like with my name, there's a lot of other movies with Field of Screams in it, and there's a big
I saw those.
haunted attraction called Field of Screams. So,
Mhm.
but we're playing on Tubi. Again, if you look for the Field of Screams that has my name in it, uh, then you'll know which one.
Absolutely. Now here, this one looks kind of interesting. Okay, and I just spoke with your director for this upcoming release. It's called The Ghost Writer. Okay, and
Oh,
this for
oh,
the
you talked to him, did you?
oh yeah, this for the viewers. It's Writer, just to get that out of the way. So it's
Correct.
called The Ghost Writer, and if you will, Bill, tell us about the story, your role, and enlighten us about the director. He seems like he'd be a cool guy.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you. Um, so I haven't seen the entire script, so pretty much all I know is my scenes. I know that uh, the director plays my son in it. Uh, yeah, this is another film in which I will dive, and it's a pretty cool death.
I see. And well, we look forward to seeing it. And
I wish
production,
I could tell you more about. I don't know, other than I know it's going to be really cool.
no spoilers. Okay. But production starts around mid December, around the 12th, 16th, around that time.
Yeah, for the Ghostwriter,
Yeah.
yeah, we've shot my scenes already, so they're in production already.
Cool. And and of course this will debut. When will the be will be when will be the debut release around early 2026, mid 2026,
Yeah, I'm guessing hopefully spring.
spring.
This sort of it's hard to say because you know a lot of it is it's DIY filmmaking. It's do it yourself, and it depends on how much available time the filmmaker and the editors have to finish all that. Sometimes the post production can take forever.
I see. I
Yeah,
see.
it's like you're like, how can the movie take this long to come out? Well, we're still tweaking the sound. We're still getting the color. You know, there's all this technical stuff that needs to be done.
Well, the Spring Breakers have something to look forward to if it's going to be a spring release,
There you go.
and
Yes, it
that's
will.
probably the method behind the madness of its later release. I don't know. I'm guessing. All right, Bill. Okay, so I just have some general questions to ask you.
Sure.
Okay? We know that horror exists in both fantasy and reality. Okay,
Okay.
it's a mechanism that is unavoidable. It's around us, and we can't really do anything about it.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Having said that, what is the scariest thing for you personally?
Wow. Being asked honest questions. Uh, well, let's see. What's you know, I grew up with very low self-esteem, zero self-confidence. So despite the bravado act, I still, to a great extent, have like going into a room full of people that I don't know. Fa- Um, Being in a situation where I feel like I don't know what's going on and I'm not in control. To me, that's like the scariest thing.
It kind of reminds me of that Doors song, strangers are strange
Oh,
when you are a stranger,
yeah.
and when you think about that
I love
title,
the Doors. I love that song. Yeah.
I hear it all the time on the waves when I turn on the rock station. There
Oh,
it is,
yeah.
you know. And so when you just told me that, that's the song that came to my mind,
Cool.
And so that's kind of humor in a way. That's kind of humorous.
Right. Right.
All right. So, Bill, how do you approach creating and embodying fear on screen or on stage?
Again, good question. And there's a couple ways. One is just physicality. If you're like you tense up your body, that kind of thing. Bring physically what fear should be, and then. Yeah, I just try to think of something, it depends on what I'm trying to evoke, something that would fit that emotion that I just run through my brain.
You improvise at the moment.
Yeah, to give you that to give you that emotional thing. Like if I have to be um sad about something or horrified or whatever, I'll imagine like getting the phone call that a close family member has been killed in an accident or something. I don't have to think about that very long, but it's enough that it I know what that emotion would be, and I just hang on to that.
I see. It's all a matter of putting in yourself or into this denial,
Kind of,
and
yeah.
acting it out
Yeah.
accordingly.
There's also a technique that I try to use as much as possible. This comes from an acting teacher by the name of Michael Chekhov, who had studied with Stanislavski and kind of distilled some of what Stanislavski was teaching. But he has a technique called the psychological gesture, which is basically you imagine if physically you were doing something to the person you were talking to, what would that gesture be? If it's someone, that you're telling them you love them, it might be an embrace. If it's someone that you're very mad at, one of my favorites, I imagine grabbing them by the lapels and shaking them. Just thinking about that, imagining that that's what you're doing while you're saying those lines has such an effect. It creates that emotion, and especially what I try to do is what I call mental rehearsal, where for several days or however long you have to work on it before you do it, um, for lack of a better word, also almost like a self hypnosis thing, uh, where you do a mental rehearsal, and it's like you imagine what it is like to go through, to be that character and to be in that scene.
Hmm. Imagine
It,
it's
it's
really
it's just so I don't sound too woo-woo-ish about that. The mental rehearsal technique is used by a lot of professional athletes.
I see.
It because it's creating muscle memory. And you literally can just sit in your lazy boy and do it because it's all happening in your head.
I see. I guess it is a real challenge, when you take on these roles and try to think of ways to make the scene appear as realistic as possible.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
and that's I guess that's the whole idea. So we're going to move on to the next
sure.
question. Okay. So let me see here. What do you think is the most effective way to scare an audience? And I have my opinion. You go
Right.
first.
Good question. It's um have you looked at all into the movie Vic Effects?
Not
Uh that I was because that's what that movie is about. The effects in the title is a reference to sound effects. There's a young woman by the name of Victoria who calls herself Vic, and that's the Vic effect. She becomes it's similar, it gets inspiration from, and I never can say this name right, Barbarian Sound Studio. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's a European film, but it's basically about creating sound effects for horror movies, and
Mhm.
at what point, when you're trying to come up with all these different ways of conveying evil, do you just invite evil into your life, which is what happens into that movie. So honestly, I think the sound, uh, I think, is something that people don't appreciate how important that is and how much it can. There's a movie called Where the Devil Roams, by the Adams family, John Adams and Toby Poser and their daughter, uh, where there's this long drawn out scene, and a guy is going to get whacked with a fireplace poker. Um, and he's oblivious. This guy is just in a reverie singing a song from his childhood, has no idea. Uh, Toby Poser's sneaking up on him with a a fireplace poker, and he's just singing this sweet song. And when finally she thrusts it through her neck, or through his neck,
Mhm.
it's just a squelch. I don't know how to, but it's such a great sound effect, and there's nothing really else going on. Um, it's like it really makes your skin crawl.
Wow, that's really interesting. That was a really good answer,
Yeah.
and it was very enriching. I'll say that. All right, now, Bill.
Well, of course, it's the sound enhances what's happening visually. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
It's not
Without
necessarily the sound itself. It's what the sound adds to what you're seeing.
that's a good
And
highlight.
it's like if you took that sound effect out, or just made it, like something that was much simpler, it would not have been anywhere near as effective.
I see. Well, that makes sense. That makes sense. So, Bill, obviously you do like horror and you watch horror movies, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What are some of your favorites?
I grew up, uh, before the era of the slashers. If you look at the 80s as when, um, the modern era of horror started, I don't know. When I go to conventions, uh, people at the horror conventions, it's like horror movies started in the 1980s. You don't see anybody dressing up as Frankenstein or Dracula. Uh, that's
Mainly
what I grew up on.
creating Jason and
The
Michael.
Universal and the Hammer films that were, there were no recordings then or cable TV when I was a kid, so it was just what happened to be on late night TV. But thankfully, because back then, other than Johnny Carson, there was nothing on after the news. So most channels ran old movies, and evidently old horror movies were popular because
Especially
they
on
were on
cable.
a lot.
Right. On cable, there was a channel called Nostalgia. Okay. And I
Okay.
believe they played a lot of those movies that you just described. And I watched them. And of course, USA had a program called Commander USA's Groovy
Yeah,
Movie. You know,
I I
I
kind of
got
remember that.
right. And so I watched his stuff, and he mainly played movies from the Hammerstein you just mentioned, 70s, 60s era, and I
Yeah.
enjoyed them. I thought they were the best. And I
Yeah.
remember just watching The Devil's Nightmare, with Erica Blarney.
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
okay, Italian actress. That was Italian made movie. That was
Hmm.
brought here to the United States. I enjoyed it, and there were other movies like that. And that's why I mainly watched when I had cable. Back then.
Right. Well,
So.
I recently rewatched Bride of Frankenstein, the original sequel from, I don't know, the mid 1930s, I guess that
Right.
was. But that had such an influence on the atmosphere and the look of horror movies from that point on. And I mean, things like maybe Nosferatu or The Last Voyage of the Demeter, where the film styles are really bring back that feel. They're very noir-ish, or
Mhm.
at least I thought so.
Well, I enjoyed them, and I
Yeah,
still watch them when I have the time to.
yeah,
I watch them over the ones that have been made recently.
right, right.
So I think they're classics. All right, Bill. Now, given your extensive career in acting, okay, is there a role you've dreamed of playing? I'm sure there is.
Well, of course, the aforementioned vampire Dracula. That's to me. That's like that would be the ultimate role.
Really?
Um,
Okay.
if not, and I don't want to be an everyday vampire. I'd like to be the Lord of the Vampires, if that's possible. There's actually a short available on YouTube called Camp Sunshine where I do play that. I play the lead psychiatrist at a rehab, um, like summer camp for uh, youth with drug problems. But I'm really uh, a vampire lord, and I use this. This is how I recruit people.
Hmm.
They come to my compound to get help with their drug problems, and I turn them into vampires.
So it's like a trap of some sort.
Yes, yes.
That's
That being said, it was a film done for Western Kentucky University Film School, uh, which it looks fine, but you don't have the budget to go as big as you'd like to. So I'm glad I got to do that, but it's not the ultimate vampire role, and I may never get to unless I make it myself, which is not out of the question.
Definitely. All right. Okay, great. So I've got some general questions to ask you. What acting techniques do you find most effective for horror?
Well, I was talking about earlier with the psychological gesture. To me,
Mhm.
uh, that's a
That
big
would be the
one.
one.
Just mentally knowing how you would physicalize that, even if you're just, and even especially, I should say, especially if you're being as still as you possibly can, but you can work that emotion, that idea up in your head that I'm just sitting here calmly talking to you, but in my mind, I'm choking you to death. That will influence what I'm saying. Um, you get that extra oomph of being physical without having to actually get physical. And I think if you counterpoint it with, um, like I said, just you're being very still. Nobody knows that in your head, all this crazy shit is going on, but it comes out. It
I
comes out
see.
in your voice and the micro expressions in your face.
Okay, great. So here's the next question. How do you collaborate with the director and other cast members to bring a scene to life? And I'm talking from nothing to something.
Yeah, good question. And again, that question will have a different answer depending on every director and every film set who you're working with. I try to have the philosophy that it's my job as an actor is to manifest the filmmaker's vision. So you tell me what you want, and I will do that to the best. I will certainly come up with my own options, but ultimately it's what the director wants. So as far as collaboration, I'll ask things like, um, do you prefer the script be word for word, or can we play with it a little bit? That sort of thing. And again, it depends on the project. There are some that you really just do need what the writer wrote word for word, and other times where you can make it more real by
Mhm.
just kind of improvising with each other. So yeah, again, it depends on and with as far as with the other actors, if you have the luxury of rehearsing ahead of time, honestly, especially in the world of low budget indie films, you don't have the opportunity other than doing it on Zoom to get everyone together to rehearse. Uh, but you run your line, you run the scene several times before you film it, so that you and your fellow actors are familiar with it. That's the main thing. And you'll find things when you're doing it, and then you'll get up on the set and you'll make other discoveries. Something will come up unexpectedly when you're like, one of my favorites is somebody says the wrong line or says the wrong word, and you just keep going with it like it was something that would happen in normal conversation, and it will make for a really great moment in the film.
Well, that brings back a memory because there was this one actor that chose his own lines instead of the script, and the director went along with it, because it sounded really good. It went along with the flow. And the actor I'm alluding to is Charlie Sheen. Okay.
Oh,
He did that. Okay.
well, he's got, let's see, tiger blood and Adonis DNA, if I recall. That he claimed he had at one time. Charlie Sheen, he's an interesting guy.
That guy cracks me up, man. His performance at Two and a Half Men were excellent. I still remember those episodes vividly. Okay, now Bill, so we don't make that same mistake earlier. Remember with that filmography, where I
Right.
got misled. Okay,
That's
and I
okay.
did see again. I saw your picture on this site, and below it was this information. Um, for what this, and this is what I gleaned from it. Okay,
Sure.
you learned. Let me see here. Let me see. You debuted in Chicago in 1983 in the Second City Children's Theater, correct?
That's
Does that sound
correct.
good? All right, great. I'm glad we're keying in on
That's me.
legit information. Then in 1985, you joined the Improv Olympics, now the IO Theater,
That's correct.
correct? Okay, and you worked with one named Del Close, and I heard he was
Hmm.
a big name at that time.
Uh, I would like to think he's still considered a big name in at least in circles of people who know who he was.
Right.
He probably his biggest claim to fame is he was a director at Second City. He directed a main stage cast that consisted of John Belushi and Bill Murray and Harold Ramis. And in Toronto, he worked with uh, John Candy and Dan Aykroyd. So they all will have said publicly that they consider him a mentor. He wasn't just a director who happened to direct a show. And I think for most of them, it wasn't even just at the theater. They were friends in real life, and it became almost like father-kid relationships. Um, and that's part of working in theater is there's a small group of you working together on something for hours and hours and hours, whether it's a film set or a theater cast. it becomes like a family. You
But
get
that like he had strong
really,
communication with those he worked around, he
yeah.
worked with and everything. Good,
But
yeah.
then when Dell started working with a outfit called Improv Olympics, which is where I worked with him, and I got involved with him specifically because I wanted to work with Dell.
Mhm.
But the people who came out of there, I mean, that's well, Joel Murray was on the same troupe as I was. Joel from Hatchet, he's in Hatchet and a couple other things. Um, but Amy Poehler, Tina Fey, Steve Colbert, Adam McKay,
They were
Dave
there.
Keckner.
Mhm.
Dave Keckner still is a good friend of mine. There's he had such an impact on so many people, and I'm not out of place in saying he was a crazy man. He was a mad. There's actually a documentary called For Madmen Only, um, but it's like you can't really teach what Dell did because it was more. It wasn't like he had a syllabus. Okay, we're going to work on this technique. He would like throw things at you mentally. Stick this in your head and now go up there and improvise. Hey, what would happen if suddenly everybody broke into a Greek chorus in the middle of a scene and started commenting on the scene? Let's try it. That kind of thing. It was he the workshops, they weren't even classes, they were workshops, and they would generally begin with Dell sitting on the stage. He was a chain smoker. He died of emphysema when he was 59. He'd be chain smoking and tell stories. And then at some point, he'd say, well, the other day I was smoking a bunch of pot and I thought, wouldn't it be hip if we. And then whatever thing he had thought up, like the Greek chorus or something, or,
Yeah.
what if, act let's see what happens if no matter what's going on in the scene we act like we're paranoid about the other person. And it was like, I mean, things like that would just totally change what you're doing, as opposed to here's how to edit a scene, that kind of thing, which is what classes are now. um, so it's and I get it, people uh who are coming and studying improvising now, they're like, who's this Del Close character? What the, they, to them, it's they don't appreciate because they don't know what he did.
He was so effective at what he did. He placed a lot of people on the track to high success,
Yeah.
as the
Oh,
name.
Andy Dick, Lily Taylor. There's a couple more names that just came to mind of people that I knew back then, or
Mhm.
that were there about the same time as I was.
Okay, correct. Now, and then we get into something called the Barons Barracudas.
That was the improv troupe that was part of the that was with Improv Olympics.
Mhm.
um and it was what was different between Second City and Improv Olympics. Second City uh, basically was a rehearsed sketch show, which is why so many Second City people were in the originals and still are a part of the Saturday Night Live. Saturday Night Live draws to a very large extent on Second City and now on or IO Theater as well. Um, but Second City was, so they were sketches, they were bits, and then at the end they would improv. They'd take some uh, suggestions from the audience and improvise little games or whatever. With what we were doing with Della Improv Olympics was not, let's do quick scenes that are funny, like Whose Line Is It, the TV show, that kind of thing, or do little sketches. It was, can we make a 45-minute improvisation, like essentially a one-act play? That was sort of the genesis. Dell and another uh, person working at Second City, Michael Gelman, uh, we're talking about all this, improvising these little scenes. That's fun. What if we could, would it be possible to improvise an entire one-act play, and you don't have to try to make it comedic, because what makes improv work is the discoveries that are being made in the moment anyway. It's not necessarily the the material would be funny, which is why um, you can use improvisation to develop scenes, but it's hard to capture. It's like you'll go out on stage and improvise a scene that the audience goes crazy for, but if you try to recreate it, it doesn't, because it didn't have what was brilliant about it originally was that it was immediate, it was in the moment, and actors made a discovery on stage, and the audience sees that discovery being made and is part of it. That's what makes improv exciting to watch. But we were doing long. So my point being is, in Dell's motto was "Do not try to be funny," and a lot of people couldn't understand that. What it is when you're trying to be funny, you usually just come across as lame, um, because
Doesn't come naturally.
it's manufactured. Yeah, it's forced. The comedy comes from, like I said, those discoveries, the things where somebody says something and the other person's response is so off the wall, and it's not scripted. That's what people love about it. It's Dell called it disposable theater, and honestly, I found that somewhat frustrating as well, because you'd have a show where it was so good and it's gone. You can't do it that show again. As opposed to like a theatrical show where you go out one night and it does well, you're going to do the same show the next night.
Exactly.
I was like, damn it. Which is why one of the reasons why I really love movies. I mean, I was drawn to movies anyway. Before I became an actor, I was studying screenwriting and directing at Columbia College in Chicago. I honestly didn't really even know what Second City was, or didn't know much about it at that time. So yeah.
Well, that's an interesting story. Good. That's a very interesting beginning. You explained it, described for yourself. And to make a long story short,
It's too late for that. I can make long stories longer. I'm really good at that.
So you eventually you met the legendary comedian Andy Kaufman. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Cool.
Actually, and that was before I got involved with Improv Olympics. They WTTW, which was the PBS station in Chicago,
Right.
they have a program called Soundstage, which is basically musical artists, and usually artists that aren't well known. They're either local to Chicago, or maybe they're going to be known to a more niche audience. And if it's PBS, it's probably something leaning toward that culture. So Andy Kaufman was a very odd choice for them, and people were surprised. It was like, really, they're gonna do a show with Andy Kaufman? That should be interesting.
People appreciated his brand of comedy, from what I understand.
Yeah, well, it was because he wasn't telling jokes. It was just he was messing with people's heads.
He was kind of like acting like a mime in some sort of way.
Sometimes, yeah. It's hard to define because he was just so different from what anybody else was like, but and not afraid to be outrageous or to piss people off, or like walk off stage at the beginning of the show and leave the audience like, what the hell just happened? Yeah, but he so WTTW was doing this show, and they wanted to have a studio audience, but not a studio audience sitting in front of the stage like you would normally have. But Kaufman was very enamored with the old Howdy Doody show. And so this whole show that we did is sort of, it's like Andy Kaufman's, Howdy Doody show, and they called us the Peanut Gallery. So where the audience is up on stage and we're behind Andy through, whenever he's talking to the camera. And where I was seated for much of the show, where he's standing in front of the audience, I'm right behind his shoulder. And in fact, at one point, he's wondering how much time had gone by for something. He's like, is it time yet? What do you think? Is it time? He's like, He talked to me. Uh, so we didn't really get to meet him and hang out. We got to shake hands, but it was interesting observing him. Like between setups. When they'd shoot one of his bits and they're getting the next one ready, and he's just a normal guy. Talking to people, and then when it's all of a sudden, then he
A
becomes
little
this.
personality transplant here, you know.
Yeah, yeah. At the end of there's this bit where he says that he's not as violent and aggressive as he once was because he stopped eating meat, and he mentions it a couple times in the show. So at the end of the show, they're doing the goodbye, and he's waving at the camera, and we're all waving at the camera, and he's saying, "Oh yeah, this was a great show. All right, are we done yet? I got hamburgers waiting for me. Do I have to keep smiling? I can smell my hamburger. Can I? And then finally, it's like they cut the show, but they're still actually filming. They get to the point where and he turns around and is like, "What are you guys laughing at? It's not funny." And it was such a, a polar opposite change like that. Holy cow.
He did something similar in the movie Man on the Moon, featuring Jim Carrey, where he
Yeah.
portrayed Andy Kaufman. And in
Mhm.
one scene later in the movie, I believe if my memory is correct, he plays a recording for the audience to listen to, and then he tells the audience, "Shut up, shut the hell up," or something like that.
Yeah,
And they were totally stunned because they weren't sure how to react, to that.
exactly.
But they weren't sure whether he was acting or if he was serious or not, but they were kind of
Yeah.
concerned.
And people still don't know, like the whole wrestling thing was that,
With women.
what was that? So and we did like there's one thing I think they left in the show. He did a few segments of something he called the going too far corner. One that I believe they used on the show was a big beefy guy, hairy chest, big belly, put raw eggs in a glass, and he'd put the raw egg into his mouth, then let it run out of his mouth, down his chest, off his belly, catch it in the glass, and would repeat. And just what is the purpose of that? I don't know, but that's one of the things Andy Kaufman came up with. He also had a stripper. This was not in the show. Who went full Monty all the way. And you got a bunch of the audience was made up. A radio station contest. It's like write a letter about why you think Andy Kaufman's funny, and if your letter is picked, you get to be in the audience, and that's how a lot. So it wasn't that you don't expect that you're going to be seeing a woman taking all of her clothes off, as well as a man pouring raw eggs down his belly.
The
And
unpredictability of it is amazing.
about a year after we taped that, I ran into the producer, Thea Flom, and I asked her about it. I said, "Hey, when is that Andy Kaufman show going to be on?" And she goes, "Oh, Bill, we couldn't. There's nothing in there we could use. There's no show there. It was nobody had any idea he was going to do it." So then another year goes by. Andy Kaufman passes away. The day he dies, I see a notice in the paper. Coincidentally, WTTW was just getting ready to show the Andy Kaufman special. I was like, they're only showing that because he died and they're going to try to get some publicity out of it. But at least, and it's available. The entire show is actually available I know it's on DVD. I'm not sure if the actual show, but then segments of that appear in the documentary about Andy Kaufman. So I'm trying, and I can't remember. Gosh, I should be able to. I just watched one recently, one of the documentaries, and there's bits in there of me, clips from that show. So
Oh, we'll find it. I'll have to
Right.
check it out.
I'll let you know. I'll send it to you.
Absolutely. Now, Bill, who is your acting role model? Now, everyone in every profession practically has someone to emulate so that they become a success. And I mean, I like Richard Matheson. He's a
Mm,
horror writer. He's
yeah.
one I emulate. So who would that be in your case?
Well, I know early on, Jack Lemmon was huge,
Yeah,
and
he's
I
one who discovered Tom Cruise.
yeah, yeah, I believe so. Um, as much as I loved horror growing up, not just watching the. I was a religious reader of famous monsters of the Filmland magazine and Creepy and Eerie, which were uh, early graphic. Now they were basically just glorified comic books. Um, uh, so it was definitely an interest of mine. I never I don't know, for whatever reason, I didn't think that could be my wheelhouse as an actor. I I thought comedy was where I would be. But
Mhm.
I really didn't even plan, like I said, I was studying screenwriting at Columbia College. I started taking improv classes to use improvisation as a creativity technique and to network with the people who were making, the movies at that time in the early 80s. Um, Harold Ramis and Bill Murray and Brian Doyle Murray and all those people. I thought, yeah, that's a good networking opportunity. I didn't intend to try to pursue a career as an actor. Even when I was doing Improv Olympics, um, I didn't have a headshot. I wasn't with an agent. I just, it's like, nah, I'm happy just doing this.
Mhm. That's interesting. Yeah, Jack Lemmon, he's a legend, and I believe he's also graduated from Harvard, so he was a very smart man.
Oh, yeah, absolutely,
And I enjoyed
absolutely.
all of his movies, and he's missed. I'll tell you that. All
And,
right.
and it's because of him that I discovered Billy Wilder and became a big Billy Wilder fan. If you know who that, he's the screenwriter and director, and
No relation to Gene Wilder, correct?
no
No, no,
relation.
different people. Okay, so
No,
I
but
didn't know.
Billy Wilder, did Some Like It Hot, for example, probably one of his most well-known ones.
I'll check it
Um,
out.
but yeah, yeah,
I never heard of it.
and he's one of those directors that um, made brilliant comedies, but he also made very serious films. He did a film called, if I remember correctly, Stalag 13, which was about American prisoners of war in Germany. And supposedly Hogan's Heroes was based on it, except that this movie is not a comedy. It was like they just basically took the ideas. Oh, because it's about the American prisoners of war in Germany, but let's make it funny because, of course, why not?
Mhm. Well, his versatility as an actor was incredible. I'll say that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
All right, Bill. So, what is the best piece of advice you've received about acting?
From what regard? Because you get advice like, um, do something worthwhile with your life. Why don't you? You get that kind of advice. But if you mean specifically acting advice, is that what you're asking?
About acting, correct?
Yeah. Well, I mean, as opposed to like career advice, things like that.
Mhm.
Um, uh, well, one of the things that Dell said, and I hate to keep bringing Dell's name up, but he said this so succinctly: "Truth is funny. The truth is funny." And Peter Ustinov, who's a name that probably a lot of people won't recognize, but he was a very well known and very well respected actor, and he said something very similar that um, the way you play the most effective way to play comedy is to play it absolutely straight. You
Hmm.
know, you don't think you're being funny necessarily. I mean, it's obviously there's two schools of that, but I like that. I think that goes no matter what. It's just even if you're like Adam Sandler or somebody who's playing a character, you still need that kind of you have to believe that you're real and that what you're doing is real. It's it Stanford Meisner is credited with having said acting is um, behaving truthfully in imaginary circumstances. So the circumstances could be totally outrageous, but how would you really, be in that sense? So I
Amazing.
don't know if that answers your question or not.
That was a good answer. I'm very pleased with it, and I'm pretty sure the
Okay.
viewers are pleased with it as well. And I do appreciate them for tuning in. Bill is a very enriching person. I hope you're learning a lot from him. And so far, so good. This has turned out to be a good interview. All right, Bill.
Cool.
So this is the last question before we
Oh,
wrap
how many points is this one worth?
up. This one is 100 points. Okay. So, what advice do you have for aspiring actors?
Find something else to do with your life that's more worthwhile. Um, I'm
Okay.
being flippant. I would say one thing: if your sights are set on being famous, if you're a comedy actor and your goal is Saturday Night Live, or you want to be in one of the Scream movies, um, it's such a capricious business. I mean, I've been doing, um, probably like the first big thing that I got was that Blockbuster video commercial in what was that, 1993, I think. So how long ago was that? And I'm still, not really. The only reason I'm at all well known now in the horror community is simply because I've injected myself into it and made myself known. I still, there's no big part, no big break. Um, you never know. I know some incredibly talented people who just never get the right break. Which is
Mhm.
why it's really frustrating when you see somebody who's like, "Oh yeah, so and so was discovered in a mall because the director thought he," I think, gosh, the guy from Dazed and Confused. Um, I can't think of his name, but
Mhm.
he's one. Like he was talking to somebody in a bar. It turned out to be the director to give him the part in the movie. Um, so it's like,
It has to do with the passion, and
it's like
so
you had no intention of being an actor. How dare you uh, become not only have a great career but be good at it when you didn't go. But again, it goes back to that ability just to be able to be real.
mhm. I think that has a lot of truth.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's
All
like,
right, all right,
people
Bill.
make fun of, Arnold Schwarzenegger. How could Arnold Schwarzenegger? But again, it's that he comes across as being real. He's an outrageous character, but he's real, and it works.
Hmm. Well, I enjoyed most of his movies,
Yeah.
and my only, well, I guess my only Schwarzenegger film that I like is Predator. I think he had done an exemplary job in that film. His other ones I could take or leave, okay,
Yeah.
but
Well,
it's Predator. Predator is the one that I like,
yeah. I mean,
So.
obviously, he's a character, and you either like that or you don't. And
Definitely. All right. Actor Bill D. Russell. All right. Okay. It was a pleasure. Thank you for
oh
appearing
gosh, it
on my
was fun.
program.
Yeah, I can't believe it's been an hour already.
When you have fun, time flies.
It does, absolutely.
Okay. And I'd like to thank the viewers for tuning in to Horror Talks
Yeah.
Live. And I'll see all of you
Thanks,
next
guys.
time.